It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their family. Now here's your host, Ken Rollins.
Welcome to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here, and today we've got a very special guest we've been trying to get for a long time. You'll be right back. We're going to talk to Congressman Mike Rogers. Be right at the end. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here, and today, as the guest is a very special guest. I was kind of holding it a surprise for everybody, but he's Congressman Mike Rogers from 3rd District, and welcome to the show, Congressman.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to be anywhere, buddy.
That's right.
I tell you, I don't know how. I spent a lot of years in the music business booking superstars, and their calendar was nowhere near as full as yours. So I'm glad to have you here today.
Well, thank you.
And they were making the big bucks too.
Well, I'm not.
Mike, for a little background for those out there that might not know, you didn't just start off in Congress. You was a Calhoun County Commissioner, right. And you were down at that crazy Alabama. You was a representative for the state of Alabama. That had to be boring down there. Everything goes so slow.
Well, no, this is my 31st year since I was first elected to the county commission, and then I served 8 years in the legislature. And the legislature was kind of fun back then. It was, you didn't have as much influence as I have now, but there was a lot of camaraderie down there. It was a lot of
we had Jack Page down there.
He was down there. He sure was, and he was a colorful character too.
There you go. I like that.
But now I understand it's gotten a lot more partisan down there in recent years, just like Washington has. So that's unfortunate. But I've been in Washington. This is my 15th year in Congress. 15.
Okay. Well, this is what I want you to do here today is cover some issues that we're finally getting you here in the month of August to. You're going to do some town hall stuff, but let's touch on some things. One thing is near and dear to me is the Anniston Army Depot, and you're on the House Armed Service Committee. What's going on in there that the folks out there should be aware of?
Well, I serve on the Readiness Subcommittee. Every member of the Armed Services Committee gets 2 subcommittees assignments. I have Strategic Forces, which is a subcommittee I chair, which oversees the nuclear weapons, missile defense, and our military satellites. Then I serve on the Readiness Subcommittee, which oversees our depots and arsenals. I've been on that subcommittee since I got in Congress, specifically so I could look after the Anniston Army Depot. This year we passed our National Defense Authorization Act out of committee about 3-4 weeks ago. And there were a couple of items that were very important to the depot that we were able to get inserted in there. One was to make sure that depot employees could get higher pay when they're sent overseas into or near a war zone to do support work. It's something that they're paid now to do, but you have to reauthorize that periodically, and we inserted that language. And the other was the provision to make it easier for the depot to hire temporary employees as permanent employees when they have openings come up. They'd really been struggling with trying to do that, so we got both those provisions in. They were very important. And we're also encouraged that the budget number that we're talking about for next year's military is going to allow us to not only keep the work that we have secure and stable, but hopefully get some new work out there, some more strikers, and there's going to be a new AMP-V vehicle that we're hoping that we'll get the maintenance work for. Wow. So the future looks very bright for the Anniston Army Depot.
I always thought, there's been wars and rumors of wars all this in the history of man. And as long as there's wars and stuff out there, depots are going to always do pretty good. But there's been a lot of challenges where you've had to step up.
It's just part of it. I mean, you have a big enterprise like that nationwide. They're going to have hiccups and problems from time to time. But that's what we're there for.
I listened to Congressman Browder that talking about when he first went up there a lot of times, and he remembered he wasn't but one vote.
That's right.
He found that out real quick, and he might have to go with a guy from Arizona. That's something that wasn't near and dear his heart just to get something for Alabama.
That's
so
right.
you have to do a lot of that, don't you?
We do.
Well, this thing, I'm out of line here on. I made myself some notes, but the strategic forces. You mentioned the nuclear thing with it, and I'm watching on the way in here today talking about North Korea and all this stuff. Is how we doing in that thing from your perspective? Whatever you can talk about.
Well, what I can talk about is that North Korea is a very serious threat. Up until about 3 months ago, maybe a little less than that, maybe 2.5 months ago, Our primary focus had been on Eastern Europe and Russian aggression in Ukraine and the threats to our NATO allies on the eastern side of Ukraine. And all that changed about 2.5 months ago when North Korea started really having some successes in their launch capabilities.
Intercontinental.
Yeah. North Korea has been working on getting an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile, that could reach the United States for a long time. And they've really stepped up their testing. And people watch these tests and they see them fail and they think, he's wasting his time. And what they don't realize is he's learning with every test. And every test gets better than the previous one and the next. And while I can't talk about specifics, I can say that these last couple of 3 tests have demonstrated capabilities that have us very concerned that he is at the point now that he does have the potential to reach the west coast of the United States with an ICBM that could be tipped with a nuclear weapon. This is something that obviously is of concern to us because he's such an erratic character.
Yeah, he wants to be relevant.
He does, and he's proved to be much more vicious than his father or his grandfather. So he'll do whatever it takes to stay in power. So we're paying a lot of attention to that area right now. So is the President, the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense have been trying to do some things to get China to try to rein him in because that's the only country that really can rein Kim Jong-un in. But your viewers need to know that the reason why this is so important to us is not just because of the ICBM's threat to the West Coast, because we do have defense capabilities that would protect us. But this erratic behavior could cause a war in that region.
Absolutely.
People forget that we have almost 300,000 Americans in South Korea and nearly 500,000 Americans in Japan. So he doesn't have to have a nuclear weapon to start bombing either one of those countries, and it would have devastating effects, and it would draw us into a major war.
It'd be like having somebody in Auburn and the enemy is over in Opelika. I mean, this
Exactly
is how close.
right.
And we got that's the one thing. And the other bad players you mentioned, like China, the thing that we've watched, the taking the missiles out there where they did it on the Chinese vehicles, some of the missiles that they've launched, and also I suspect, as do a lot of other people, Iran is not sitting on the sideline there. They got an advantage to see what North Korea does with that.
See, there's a lot of suspicions that we have that Iran is helping North Korea develop their capabilities so that Iran can buy some of that technology from them. So there's a lot of threats around the world, but I can say with certainty that there's none that's more acute right now than North Korea.
Well, I want to make sure, we got 1 minute. I want to talk about Space Corps in a minute. Tell me about that. What I've seen a little bit about it.
Well, what we have done is just like our domestic economy has become very reliant on satellites. If you have a smartphone, you're using a satellite every time you use it. If you go and put your debit card in the gas pump, you're using a satellite. You go to the bank and do a transaction, you're using a satellite. People don't realize it. They think about when they watch TV, they're using satellites, but it's a part of every part of your life, satellites are. Same thing's true in the military. We have become very dependent on satellites to fight and win wars. In fact, we can't be successful anymore without them. This has all happened over the last 10 or 12 years. Problem is, most of our military satellites are in the Air Force, and the Air Force is focused on air dominance, not space dominance. So it's kind of been a redheaded stepchild and has not got the attention it needs. So what we're working on doing is segregating the space professionals within the Air Force into a separate corps, like the Marines are in the Department of the Navy.
We're going to talk more about that. They're telling us to go to a break. Come back. We're going to talk more with the Congressman. Be right back. Get your pen. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. We're talking with Congressman Rogers, the 3rd District Congressman, and we were talking about the Space Corps. Now let's go to another subject I wrote down. I want to make sure we get covered, and that's immigration. We can talk for 5 hours on it. Yeah. What is the wall and immigration, and I mentioned off there, sanctuary cities was the big thing of the day. So what are your thinking?
Well, President Trump's already done a lot to secure our southwest border and deal with the problem we have with illegals here by cracking down and enforcing existing laws, which the previous administration wouldn't do. We've seen the number of immigrants coming in has slowed dramatically. We've seen many of those that were here leave because they can't get jobs now.
Not
because
new
they're
laws,
closed.
but existing.
Existing laws. That's all we needed to do to get rid of a lot of the problem.
Yeah.
However, we still have a lot of bad elements who are bringing guns across the border, drugs across the border, sex trafficking, a whole host of threats, not to mention terrorists. We got to seal the border. The president pledged he was going to do it. What we've got to do now is come up with a way to help fund it. One of the things that I've done is introduced a bill to put a 2% fee on remittances to South America. For people who don't know what a remittance is, if you wire money to another country, that's called a remittance. And most of the people who work here illegally, immigrants, and many of the legal immigrants, send most of the money they make back home to their families. And it turns out there's $54 billion a year that's remitted from the United States to South American countries every year.
Through the money center at Walmart.
Exactly, those kind of facilities, exactly. So half that money goes to Mexico. So by putting a 2% fee on those remittance transactions, it would generate $1 billion a year, and I've earmarked that for the wall. The president is looking at putting together a package of 3 or 4 funding mechanisms, and I believe mine's going to be one of them, to then present to Congress to say, these are the ones I want you to pass to pay for the wall. What I like most about my proposal is it comports with the president's promise to make Mexico pay for the wall, because this 2% is coming out of the money that would have gone into the pockets of Mexican citizens, as well as the other countries are Colombia, Honduras, Venezuela, other South American countries. They all have people that come up here into our country illegally too, and I think they should help pay for the wall as well. I am very certain that the president's going to keep his pledge and seal that southwest border, and we got to get it done. And I think once that's done, how we deal with the folks that are here is going to be easy. But we're not going to deal with people who are here and give them any sort of path to legal status until we seal that border.
Sanctuary cities.
That's just unbelievable to me that cities think they can ignore federal law.
Yeah.
Attorney General, I think, is right to let these cities know that if they believe that they can ignore the federal law, they're wrong. I think he intends to go in and not only cut off federal funds, but start prosecuting people who flagrantly disregard the federal law.
I don't understand that. I don't understand the simpler part of it, how people can be here illegal and they not, and the people fussing about, oh, they're just here illegal, and that goes back to which laws do we enforce,
Yeah,
Now,
you don't get to pick and choose.
Yeah, I don't want to run out of time on this, but we're going to talk about Obamacare, health care, Affordable Care Act, Unaffordable Care Act, whatever. A lot of people have a misperception on what that is, and my special thing is expanded Medicaid, call it whatever they want, but they expanded Medicaid, and they talk about people going to die. People were not dying before Obamacare.
Right.
So what is your take on the health care thing? Because I know some of the things went through the House. Well, let me say this. It went through the House, and while it was being put together in the House, Chuck Schumer and Pelosi were saying it's a mean bill, but they hadn't seen it.
Right.
Then it got to the Senate. Chuck Schumer's yelling, it's even meaner. There's 18 white guys behind a door framing this bill, but we haven't seen it. So how do you know this? Is this Carmack? What the guy with Johnny Carson?
Yeah. Schumer didn't know what was in the bill. He was going to say that no matter what they came up with, because he wanted to keep the current Obamacare, Affordable Care Act in place, and anything that didn't keep it in place was going to be mean.
Yeah.
And the thing that people need to be aware of when it came to the bill that passed the House was that was never going to be the law, the final product.
Right.
The bill that the Senate voted on that failed by 1 vote was never going to be the law.
Right.
Your viewers will remember from high school, the way a bill becomes a law is has passed the House, passed the Senate, and they're never the same, which means you have to go into what's called a conference committee, made up of a handful of House and Senate members who work out a compromise. That's what actually comes back to the House and Senate for up or down vote. No more amendments, up or down. And if it passes, goes to the president for signature and becomes a law. What people need to be aware of is that we were trying to get the Senate bill passed, or they were trying to get the Senate bill passed, just so we could get to conference to write a bill that we thought could then pass both chambers. So nobody knows what the final bill was going to look like. It was not going to look anything like the House bill or anything like the Senate bill. It was going to be something that would be, frankly, brand new. But we'll never know now because the Senate couldn't get their version out.
Right.
They say they're going back to take another shot at it this fall. I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, I heard them talking, I think Lindsey Graham talking about the states, giving it to the states, and I've heard so many different versions and everything, but I think I would caution our viewers, let's wait to see what they're going to put out there
Right.
to hand to the president before we start saying we don't like it, you know.
Well, also, people need to understand the president's not exaggerating when he says that the current Affordable Care Act is going to crash and
Gotcha.
burn. My view is anything would be better than what we've got now. Our state was not one of the states that expanded Medicaid. So by repealing Obamacare, you're not going to see, as they say, millions of people thrown off the rolls. Our state didn't expand the Medicaid rolls.
From where we're sitting right now, you could throw a rock and hit a lady that's paying $800 a month just on for her health care, and she's married, but her part is $800.
And I guarantee you her deductible is so outrageous
Thank
it's
you.
almost not worth it.
Thank you. So you really don't even have insurance.
Unless you get a catastrophic illness, it's of no use to you.
This is Veterans Issues. You have a Veterans Advisory Committee that's been going on, several years
Yeah.
now? And I know some of them that's on there. And I appreciate that because they're really proud to be out there to be your ears
Yeah.
up to the street.
They do a good job.
They do. And there's a lot of things that I wish everybody, the senators, could have something like that, to have a conduit back to you got a lady named Margaret, and hey, Margaret, she's my buddy. She's got an ear to the street too, and I always know what her number is.
Yeah.
And she's always there to
She's got a real servant's heart and does a great job
to
for our
rescue me.
veterans.
Let's see. I want to make sure I didn't miss any. The 1911s.
Yeah.
Tell me about that right quick. That's a
Well,
pistol.
many of your viewers probably are aware we have a place called the Civilian Marksmanship Program here in Anniston, and they take old service weapons that have been long out of use. They fully restore them and sell them to collectors. Well, there's a 45 caliber pistol that used to be used by the Army up until the early 90s that was decommissioned, and we've got about 100,000 of them left. They're technically all 1911s that are stored at the Anniston Army Depot. It's costing us $55,000 a year to keep them stored. That we'd like to turn over to the Civilian Marksmanship Program like we do older weapons so that they can be restored and sold to collectors. Unfortunately, and I've gotten language in last couple of NDAAs to allow that to be done. Problem was the Democrats, particularly the administration, did not want any more guns out. They're very opposed to weapons. So the president instructed the Secretary of the Army not to turn them loose. Well, now we have a new Secretary of the Army, and I expect sometime in the next few weeks you're going to see those weapons start to be turned loose and brought here. And that brings jobs to our area.
Great. I appreciate you coming and doing this. And
Sure.
I want the folks out there that's going to be coming to the town hall meetings in the next few, let's keep it civil, and you've heard the answers that I got today. You can do the same thing when you're there if you respect the fact that there's more to all this than what any of us know. That when you go behind the doors and you close the doors, you can't see what's going on there because you don't know. So I appreciate the Congressman coming here today.
Sure.
And wish you well. Look in the camera and tell me you'll come back.
I will. I'll come back, yeah.
I got you down. So we'll have him back on here and give us a full report later on. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be right back with news as you can use. Stay right there. Get that pen. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. I appreciate Congressman Rogers coming in today, and we got him on camera saying he's going to come back, so we'll have him back here. But I think it's going to be in time soon the way he works, and I think he enjoys that fast pace. To be honest with you, here's the number I want you to write down. I was going to told you to get the pen. It's 855-948-2311. That's the new Veterans Hotline that's established at the White House. And if you don't believe it, try it. Try the number. Call it again, 855-948-2311. And that's even if you got someone who's in lieu of calling the suicide hotline, that's a good number. President Trump had that put in up there, and it does work. Got a lot of people using it. This website, I want you to go Wounded Warriors Alabama at gmail.com. Wounded Warriors Alabama, all one word, at gmail.com. And the phone number is 256-458-2715. That's Ross Winter's outfit, and they help a lot of veterans with financial assistance, building ramps and things like that. It's not just Wounded Warriors, but there's a great organization just forming in Alabama, and I really support them. They're good folks, and Ross is an old Special Forces guy, so you got a big heart for that. And we're building the Firefighters Memorial, the official Firefighter Memorial for the state of Alabama, up in Centennial Park. So if you see some construction up there, that's what we're building. And it'll have the names of all those who lost their life in the line of duty, whether it be volunteer fire or regular firefighters. If you got any wheelchairs, power chairs, the ones with the batteries in them, I can use them. I got veterans out there that don't qualify for one, but they'd like to use one to ride to the mailbox or up and down the street to gossip. And veterans like to gossip, so if you can get them a wheelchair, and I'll come get it, take it out there to them. I got a couple in need of it right now. So if you got a veteran out there, young veterans in need of transportation, I got a lady that wants to give, her son was killed in Afghanistan. He had a souped up a little vehicle. I'm not going to tell you what kind it is, but it's for a young person. And I'm kind of offended by that. But anyhow, she'd like to give it to a young veteran that is in need. So if you know somebody that fits in that category, Afghan veteran, Iraq, let me know. The law enforcement tag is out there. Get one for your car when you go to get your, and the revenue from that tag is where we build these memorials up here in the park. Bill Partridge designed that tag, and it's been a blessing to us to be able to build all these memorials and take care of the law enforcement memorial with the revenue from that tag. So, and the DAV van, we need drivers. We need volunteer drivers to take the veterans from Oxford to Birmingham, and we bring them back. We don't just take them over and leave them, but they take them over, wait for them, and bring them back, and it's a great volunteer service. And if you'd like to be a part of that, give me a call. My information is always on the screen here somewhere. And if you'd like to be a DAV driver, get that choice card. The Congress that Congressman Rogers in, they extended that choice card for 6 more months, and it works. It works for me. It works for a lot of other veterans. So get you a choice card, and I want to keep on paying it forward. I did it this morning. It works good, folks. Bless your heart. This week's salute goes out to all of those. This is for the spouses and the people that are set back home here. That's loved ones of those that are serving in harm's way. And we forget you sometime, but we're going to give this salute to you this week. We'll see you next week on Veterans Issues. Salute. We're gone.